Welcome back, friends. As we presented in the first episode definitions, and very precise definitions of truth, definitions of what in nature, a definition of form, definition of matter. Now we are in a position to actually discuss nominalism and in that whole topic. So let's define nominalism. It's the tendency of thought in medieval period that wants to say that the natures of things are just names. But it comes from medieval nominalism, a different source than early modern thought. So there are two strands. So the one from the Middle Ages and then one from modern. So there's two roots, and depending on it, but in its basic definition. So I wanted to show that there could be two strains of thought, and you could have two different definitions. But its basic understanding, nominalism, is that universal forms are not real. So episode 1, Sarah and I went to great pains to present that forms are real, and forms are actually the essence of that thing that we're trying to name, a rose, a robin, so forth. Nominalism says that's all wet. That's all wet. That's not true. The God of voluntarism, the starting point of modernity. So now we're in a new section. Duns Scotus originated this idea of nominalism, but it was really William of Ockham who gave it a full form coming through Averroes, a philosopher of the Middle Ages. And it was the primacy of the will over the intellect. Agency over being is the consequence.
Right.
Nominalism names of things not tied to reality. And you quickly get to voluntarism of operation because the will is sovereign. Voluntarism is freedom means autonomy. So those were some. William of Ockham was a Franciscan, 1287 to 1347. He promoted nominalism. He denied that there is such a thing as a universal in the reality of the world. He questioned the ability to prove the existence of God through philosophy, which is, of course, I think the greatest feat man has done is come up with the 5 proofs of God. That's just my opinion. So therefore, he rejected Thomas Aquinas' contention that there was a harmony between faith and reason. In ecclesiastical affairs, he advocated the idea of separation of church from secular governance. The emperor, but this is how he saw it. The emperor could dispose the pope, but the emperor could not be disposed by the pope. And if that's
a great separation of church and state there.
That's correct. That's right.
That is the separation of the church by the state.
It is. And if we look at today, this is exactly a consequence of nominalism.
Yeah.
With the state telling the church when and how and what to be able to do. Of course, this is against what Pope Gelasius and Ambrose would have taught. And that's why one of the reasons he got into such trouble with the hierarchy. Occam's razor, being should not multiply without necessity. This principle states that among competing hypotheses that predict equally well, the one with the fewest assumptions should be selected. He was exiled, excommunicated, and some might posit that he was reconciled with the church, but not the papacy at the end of his life. He found the scholastic mind, and as you, my friend, may have found it hard there in episode 1, he found it hard. And so instead of asking the Lord for help, and
he usurped it.
And we are, my friends, we don't really want to do that because we end up
Where we are now.
Where and we don't want to be here, do we? I don't.
Obviously this is not, we know that this is not the real final end of his heresy, because once a bullet goes astray, it goes astray further, right? I mean, but the way that you rectify the erroneous first shot, right, is to go back to the point of deviance to see if you can get back on the right track. And so for the point of for many of the modern problems, when you were talking about the primacy of the will over the intellect, what I want as opposed to what is true. And if you can deny form, right? And really, this is where we are now. I mean, I think hopefully people are making connections in their mind with already who are listening to us with what this actually means in regards to what's going on in the modern world. If you can deny, if reality is not truth, right? If what we see with our eyes objectively does not tell us something about what we are seeing, then individual truth becomes primacy, as opposed to universal truth, which is recognizable by all, right? Then we cannot, then I don't even know how we would use either individual traits or collective traits to begin to know our world. And since God made us, first of all, it's that Baltimore Catechism tells us way at the very, very beginning, question number 1, why did God make us? He made us to know him, love him, and serve him, right? But if we can't get beyond know, right? If we can't know him, we're really going to struggle.
We really are. If nature is just inert stuff like shotgun pellets, and just these random forces moves it, gravity, magnetism, whatever 5-7 laws we know of at this time, and not in and of itself, then the law and the lawgiver is over, because
right.
Because it just will become laws are not those things attached to our nature as human persons, right? So because I want to get to what is natural law, and I want to get to those things proper to a human person. But if a human person is a rose, a cat, a rock, because we really the name of the thing, that form, the essence of being really isn't there, as what Malcolm and his descendants will say, then you're left with imposing laws by those who have the greatest power, the greatest, and that's what we're saying is the law of the will, the
law of the will, right?
And that's voluntarism.
Right, that's exactly right.
So why do I want to bring in the language of law? Because law is the ordinance. Because law is really tied to reason. In its best days, laws is the ordinance of reason, promulgated by relevant authority for the sake of the common good. So there's another definition.
Right.
Law comes from reason. You have appropriate authority, and it is for the common good. And nature is constituted by God. Remember those 5 proofs I talked about. God constitutes our nature. We don't sit and get to decide what is belonging to human nature any more than we really can sit here and decide what belongs to the nature of a rose. All we're doing is we're observing.
Right, we're articulating it, right.
And we articulate it.
Right.
And that's true. But we have not determined roses have these properties.
Right. And even when we do use matter to manipulate roses, right? We can't make a rose into a daisy. Right? All that we can do is we can modify what would be the categories of its being, right? We can't change its substance. Its substance is, but we can change quantity. We could change quality. We could change, relation in regards to, whether it's far away from us or whether it's near to us. We could change, I don't know if you could change the action of the rose necessarily, but there are certain things that God permits man to cooperate with him in. But in the essence that is the rose, that he has determined for us.
That is right.
Because there's something, and the reason of that, and I think it's very important to point out, and I find it interesting that, Duns Scotus, who is actually the one who is capable of helping us to articulate how Mary could be conceived immaculately, right? I mean, so like we understand that just because somebody goes erroneous in one place does not mean that they can't be right somewhere else, right? But in that essence, one of the things that makes me I'm always so surprised by when you have these men of intellect who don't recognize that it is the essential, the essence of something that is the way through nature that God speaks to man so that man can know who God is, right? Okay. So it is, we cannot tinker with the essence of someone, because within that essence, I think that God has left his own mark on nature. In that essence, that is, and you said that before, that that nature is constituted by God, right?
That's
and
right.
That is his thumbprint. And those are, maybe we could even look at those essences, or that thingness of everything, right? That those are the breadcrumbs that God leaves here to lead us to him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, my friends, we're going to pick up with that idea. Till the next time. Fides et Ratio.